how they try to blend it in with these white gods. So you have Indra, the king of the gods. Osiris is king of the gods. You have Osiris's mother, who is Tefnut. She is queen of the gods. You have Indra's mother, who is Aditi, who is also queen of the gods. You have Indra being the brother of Agni. Agni means fire. You have Osiris being the brother of Isis. Isis is the goddess of elements, one of them being fire. She is a solar deity. You have Indra being the defender of Dharma, which is basically the cosmic law and order. You have Osiris being defender of Ma'at, which is cosmic law and order. You have reference to Indra being the bull. You have the Vedic hymn to Indra, the bull. And we have Osiris Apis. We have Asar Happy, which is where we get Apis. And Apis is where we get, Asar Apis, where we get Serapis. And we know that Asar goes to the bull, it's represented as a bull in a lot of depictions. So you have Indra being represented by a bull. You have Asar or Osiris being represented by a bull. You had Indra, who has 14 lifespans. You have Osiris, who was chopped up in 14 pieces. I can go on and on and on. So many comparisons that you can do between Indra and Osiris. You also have Rudra and Yama, who are kings of the netherworld, just like Osiris. You have Seti, who was basically chopped up like Osiris, except, Seti was chopped up in 54 pieces. So we can go through a lot of the Hindu gods and compare them to Osiris, and it's for a reason that it's Osiris, which we'll get into. But you can compare so many of the stories, Krishna, Vishnu, which we'll talk about later. A lot of these gods you can look at and see how they compare with Egyptian gods, and that the two go hand in hand in a lot of different ways. It is no way around it. It's almost laughable to scholarship to me. When you look at it, it's like, what do they expect? This is why I say to people, I always use this phrase, only people in third world countries will believe that, because they must don't have access to the right kind of information. Anybody who does this stuff, who was into this stuff, long ago, they probably thought they can get away with it, and they kind of trying to make up for it now with the distractions with entertainment. But when you just starting to really get into this information and read about it, it's really easy. It's plain to see. But they leave this stuff for the people in secret societies, because they will ultimately come to the true understanding of what it all means, which you're going to understand at the end of this video. So they leave this information for them. It's not for us, as I keep saying. The Bible is not for you to understand the true hidden meaning of it, which we're going to get into that a little bit too. It's not meant for you. It's meant for them in the secret society. This is why it is at the altar of every Masonic lodge throughout the world, the Bible, the Torah, the Quran. Why is there nothing about Buddhism, Hinduism? We're going to get into that as well. It'll make a lot of sense. You got to understand what this stuff represents and how it goes back to the solar god, the sun. It goes back to melanin and Kundalini rising. And this is very important in understanding this stuff, because it's everything. And I talked about in part 1 about the Waz staff and the jet pillar of Osiris, the serpent, and how that, corresponds with the Shiva Linga, what that whole thing was about. So it's another thing that we can compare with Hinduism and see its relation to the Egyptian teachings. Now, when we look at Brahma, Brahma is associated with Harani Agrabah. And Harani Agrabah is the cosmic egg, or the golden womb. Now, where else do we find a cosmic egg? We find it with Ptah. We find a cosmic egg, or the Agdod, which we got into previous video. Now, they just basically gave it away right there with the cosmic egg. I could have just started off with the cosmic egg and just left it at there. Cosmic egg, and we got a cosmic egg in Kemet with Ptah. Same stuff it's talking about. So again, this stuff just goes back. When you know this stuff, I know I've been spitting it out and giving it to you in videos, so it's just easy information you got. But you got to understand how fortunate you are to have the mindset to want to seek after this information. To millions and billions of people, this is mush. This is stuff they have absolutely no clue about. But you guys understand it when you know about the Agdod. So when you see this in Hinduism, wait a minute, they got a cosmic egg too. That's the same thing in Kemet. It's easy for you to put together when you get into this stuff. So, that's basically, we can understand it's coming from Kemet, and then we get Hinduism, and it's many reasons why that happened. Of course, they was going back and forth. So now with Buddhism, let's get into Buddhism, because what Buddhism basically did, Buddhism basically took the physical and spiritual aspect of it all, the truth of it all, and basically give it to you in a better understanding, a more simple understanding. Understanding, Buddhism and everything is talking about, it's just, when you just break it down, it's just so simple to where you can really just understand where Buddha is coming from, where Siddhartha is coming from. So we know the story real fast. Siddhartha basically, born and, a prince, and basically wanted to get out the palace and finally got let out. And he was basically going around to basically see what the people was like. And he saw, the four sightings. The four sightings, which was, old man, he saw death, he saw disease, and he saw the old man basically singing and having fun. Those four sightings led to the Four Noble Truths. And the Four Noble Truths is, there is suffering. Plain and simple. Suffering is caused by desire. Third one is that desire or suffering doesn't have to be. If you denounce desire, you can get rid of suffering. And a fourth one is basically there is a way to get rid of desire by following the eightfold path, or the eight path. And the eightfold path is basically, it has to deal with meditation. Now, following the eightfold path, that's basically dealing with thought, understanding, speech, action, livelihood, efforts, concentration, and mindfulness. So dealing with these 8 things, this is the eightfold path. And you follow the eightfold path, which basically leads you into karma. It's dealing with karma. Now, following the eightfold path will determine whether or not you have karmic consequences. And having karmic consequences is not a good thing. If you can go through life with no karmic consequences, this is what they call the last birth or the last life, where you basically reach nirvana. Now, there's basically 2 states of nirvana, one in life and one in death. And nirvana basically mean, getting rid of desire. It means to extinguish. And every Buddhist strives to reach nirvana. Now, if you don't reach nirvana, you die, basically still in desire and still with these kind of, what they call sins as far as Buddhism, you basically reincarnate. That's basically what happens to you. Now, we talked about reincarnation before, and, a lot of people don't believe in it, but you got to understand, if you really pay attention to Buddhism, if we really get into this stuff, this is why this stuff is far out in Tibet and far out in these countries where, a lot of people just don't really care what goes on there. They basically prove reincarnation. I mean, to me, they proved it. Now, with reincarnation, basically what they did as far as proving it is when a person dies, when they die and then they come back, they have a system of finding them, of finding out if they are the person that died. So if you really read a lot of books on Buddhism and understand in Tibet about the Tibetan Book of the Dead, they have a Buddhist Book of the Dead, just like, the Egyptians have the Egyptian Book of the Dead that I did the video on. It's the same thing. And this book is basically to guide you through reincarnation or guide you through death until reincarnation. So in Buddhism, they believe after you die, if you do reincarnate, you will reincarnate after 45 days and you'll come back. So that kind of gives them this time limit so they can understand if somebody was pregnant, 45 days after that person's death, and they have a system where they can find out if you reincarnated. And they can do that by being in these little small towns that they in. You go into Tibet, it's like small villages. It's not so many people. So everybody knows everything. Everybody knows each other's business. It's nothing like the cities we grew up in. So, of course, they know when a person just had a baby and where the timeline adds up at. And then sometimes the baby or the child, when it's a little bit older, they'll find out that they have a birthmark, the same birthmark in the same spot as the person that died, or I would have traits of somebody who died. And since everybody know each other, the person will pick up on it like, hey, you remind me of such and such. In a lot of cases, like these kids, they be talking about people they shouldn't know exist, that came from a past life and things like that. So once they have a person, they have a child that they believe reincarnated, they put them through a test. So the test, once they realize who they think the person is, they'll take that person's effects, the stuff that they had when they was alive, and they'll put it with a bunch of other stuff. And I'm telling you, the kid will walk in a room and go straight to the item and pick it up. Tell them choose one, pick it up. So then, okay, it could be a coincidence. So they tell them to choose another. And in these cases, a lot of times the child would choose every single item as the person that they thought they reincarnated as. So that person affects all his items that he had. When he came back and reincarnated as this child, the child would go and pick out all the items out of a bunch of items, pick them all out. And then they would know that, hey, yeah, it is him. You reincarnated, you made it, and then, through reincarnation, once they find out and confirm that this was a person that once was here, it's a big celebration. And it's a celebration because the person actually made it through reincarnation. And I know the whole thing really is about, not reincarnating. It's basically a sin, but you got to understand to make it back here in the physical form as a human is still a big thing. Just like the ancient Egyptians, the people of the Buddhists and in Tibet, they believe in people reincarnating as insects or animals. This is why, they have a lot of respect for animals and everything because, they believe that if it's not food, if you're not killing it for food, you shouldn't kill animals. You should basically treat animals the way you treat, other people. Now, also with reincarnation, a person could reincarnate, across the country. You could have relatives in other countries that you don't understand. How we do DNA tests and you realize you got people that you descend from another country. So you can also reincarnate across countries, across, cities and towns, not just within the same town. And we see that a lot where people reincarnate across country. And of course, you can't find people that way. It's harder. So understanding the 4 sightings, the 4 noble truths, and the 8-fold path, all this stuff is the same as the path to Osiris. That's basically what this is. When you look at Ani's Book of the Dead, you can see basically it's the same type of concept. So in Buddhism, when it's talking about suffering being caused by desire and to rid yourself of desire, in ancient Egypt, they say, rise above your animal instinct, because that's basically what desire is. Desire is lower brain. So desire, being lower brain, is something you need to have access and control of the lower brain to basically avoid, falling victim to. So in Buddhism, rising above desire and ridding yourself of desire, it's the same as, rising above your animal nature. So this basically just goes right into Osiris and the jet pillar, and the jet column, your spine, or what have you, and basically grasping the serpentine energy and understanding how that energy basically gives you control of the lower brain and the third eye. So with that, you can continue, you can ascend. So now when you look at the whole 8-fold path and how that can basically lead you to having no karmic consequences, and you need to have no karmic consequences in order to go further to reach nirvana, it's basically the same as Ani in the Book of the Dead when he basically, goes and gives the 42 negative confessions. So no negative confessions, 42 negative confessions. He's saying basically I have not done any of that, just like I have no karmic consequences. And when they're talking about having no karmic consequences leads to the last death or the last birth or the last life or what have you. And that's basically the same thing. It's the same thing. When you basically pass through judgment, you get to Osiris, and Osiris basically gets you to, the realm of the gods. And that's basically what it's saying in Buddhism. If you have no karmic consequences, you can basically reach nirvana and ascend and keep going. So it's the same thing in essence when you look at it. It's talking about the same stuff. So you got to really look at these things and compare it. And Buddhism, what it does is it basically just breaks it down. It kind of makes it a little bit more simple, but still a lot of people don't really understand what it's pertaining to. Because when you're reading it and you're looking at Buddhism, if you don't understand that this stuff is talking about energy, it's talking about the soul, it's talking about so many things that pertains to your body, again, in ancient Kemet, when you look at the jet pillar and you look at the third eye and the pineal gland and what all this stuff is talking about, we're really talking about the human body, and it's, just covered with so many stories and mysteries and things like that, to where it almost seems unreal to people. That's why a lot of people can't grasp the concept, because, you have these stories. And when people hear these stories, they just think about it being a fable or a story, what have you, a fairy tale. So they can't really put it together. They can't really take it seriously because it don't seem real. But the simple fact that you have all this stuff hidden behind it, all this secret information, tells you it's something that you should know.